Okay, welcome to the CCAA's Zoom demo with Nicole Slater. And I am so happy that you agreed to do this because I follow you on Instagram and I love your watching you do these things, and they're so colorful and so exciting. So I'm going to give this over to you and carry on.
All right. Well, thank you, Jolene, for having me and inviting me to this. I'm excited and nervous, and I have it all going on. You know, art to me is a lifestyle, and I absolutely love doing things like this. It gets me out of my box. So thank you for having me. So my goal today, everyone, I'm Nicole Slater, and I'm from Modesto, California. And I paint in watercolors. I do multimedia pieces, but this particular collection that you're seeing back here is from my Colors of Wonder collection. And so the whole idea with the Colors of Wonder, I started last year, and it was to express, which I love, mistakes that you turn into beautiful flowers. And when I say mistakes, you're being expressive. You're not trying to paint a realistic flower. You're trying to paint something that brings you joy. You turn maybe a puddled mess into something beautiful. And so that's where I started doing this collection, and it's about color, it's about blooms. And when I say blooms, I'm not talking just flowers, I'm talking about blooms, meaning the watercolor starts to spread and ooze into each other. You can see in some of these areas back in here. And I know that some people in watercolors go, oh no, blooms aren't good. Well, they are for me. I absolutely love them. So my goal today is to walk away having you either be inspired, maybe learn a technique, or perhaps experiment with some of these products. So let me just show you real quick. Again, I'm an artist full-time, 20 years. I have an art loft that is called the Artist Loft in Modesto, and it's open to people to take private art lessons from me. I start at age 4.5. And my oldest client right now is 88, and she makes up my stairs every week. So I just feel like I have met so many wonderful artists, and it's my goal to keep that going. So hopefully some of these people on here will also be a part of my tribe. I call it my art tribe.
Nice.
So anyway, thank you. I want to start by showing you a few things I think are important, and that's your tools. And what I have discovered with watercolors especially is it's all about the extension of your hands. So for example, if I paint and I'm doing something really tiny, my extension is pretty small. But if I make my arm part of the whole movement, now I'm more expressive with what I'm doing. And so it's important that we talk about how we hold the brush and that kind of thing. So today I'm just going to do a quick little review of things that I use that I enjoy. And I do have a link, and I'll share it with you, Jolene, so that you can share it with others.
Yeah, I'll put it up on
My
the
favorite watercolor paper is Strathmore. And it might be backwards on here, I'm not sure. It's the Strathmore 400 series. And I absolutely love it for a couple reasons. The one is that I can buy it in a giant roll. So normally the paintings back here, they go from about 40 to 6 feet on average is what I like to paint. But they also make, if you're not that type of person, the smaller version. Instead of the 6-foot roll, you can do a little pad of paper here. And I absolutely love it for a couple reasons. One is I do the cold press, so it has a little bit of texture. I enjoy the color. It has a warm patina to it. It's not overwhelmingly yellow. It just has a little bit of warmth. And so you can kind of see it's a pinky, not pinky, it's just a beautiful warm light. And I just love it. And the other thing I like to use is, and this is my favorite right now, these are equal line watercolors. And I bought this set. It comes in 10 to a pack, and it's on Amazon. I do have the link I'll share.
And they're watercolors, not inks?
Yeah, so okay, so if you, I don't know if you can see, they say right on the bottle, equal line watercolor mixables. And what it is, and this is what I've discovered, Jolene, and I didn't realize this, they are dye based. So people get it confused and they think they're an ink. They're actually a dye based watercolor. And the difference is that the pigment, it actually floats into the water, whereas a pigmented watercolor sits on the top surface. So you get a little bit more pebbling, they call it. So the dynamics that
Granulation.
you get are these beautiful, intense colors.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So there's one drawback, and I'm going to show you on here too. This was fun, by the way. This is just all the colors, and I did like almost a rug.
Yeah.
Just went back and forth, so you could see how when they layer on top of each other, how beautiful they mix. Even when they turn brown, they're still beautiful. And then here's the color chart. I always make like a little color chart just to kind of give myself something to look at as I'm painting. I would recommend that. But the thing I've discovered is that you do have to be a little careful because they're not light fast. So that means when I sell it to a client, you do want to say, please do not put it in a front window or in a gallery situation. Sometimes they want to put mine in the front window, and I'll tell them, you know, unfortunately, please, you know, don't do that because it can fade over time. It doesn't happen right away, but it can. So my go-to to prevent that is the UV protection from Krylon, and I love it because it is meant for watercolor, protects acrylics, pastels, color pencil. You can use it for almost anything. And it really looks fabulous. It actually makes the painting, I think, more intense and more beautiful. So I strongly recommend that. And what I do is I lightly mist it. You don't want to, you know, penetrate it with a lot of water. So you do 5 coats, literally. So I do one direction, I let it dry about 15 minutes, go another direction. You just keep going.
Just so it doesn't reactivate the pigment.
Yeah, no, as long as you do it soft and light, you're right. You will not reactivate it, which is why you do it.
Do you put your, how do you frame your paintings when they're so big?
Okay. I don't know if you saw me on Instagram, but a couple things. So some of my clients have literally used like little clips to hang my art because framing nowadays is so expensive.
Oh.
Oh, it's incredible. So you, for example, a piece this size, if I did a linen mat and a frame, can be up to $1,500 just for the frame. Yeah. So what I do is I tell people that they can purchase them this way. I ship them in a tube so that they don't get damaged on the way, and then they get their framer locally to frame them. There is other sources. One is called Frame Destination. I really like their work, and you can have them send all the parts and you can put it together, or they can have it all ready to go and you just slip in your art, and it's a lot more affordable. So I've been using them a lot lately because of that. And they have a pretty good variety of frames. So everything from contemporary to a little more traditional. So I like that. Yeah. The other thing I want to just real quickly go over, and I'm sorry, I just want to make sure everyone knows what I'm using. I do have this mica gold. This is an ink, and I enjoy using this for embellishments. And I would like to show you on here an example of that. So if you can see on this piece, I'll try to turn it so you can see some of the reflective gold. I don't know if you can get that on camera or not. Let me see if I
No,
can
it's not
zoom in.
really showing.
Yeah, it's not really showing, is it? Let me find, oh, here, this might help. See the edge of this one? I actually gold tipped it all
Oh, yeah.
along
Yeah.
the edges, and it's a metallic gold. And that's the thing with art. When you see it in person, it just breathes a different soul. You know, you just can't get it on a camera, unfortunately, or a video, but I promise they're pretty. So anyhow, I do want to get us started because I know everyone's here and they want to see and play and enjoy this. I also have some rubbing alcohol. I do like to use that in some of my products.
Do you
Hopefully your
just,
box
any kind, any,
they, you know, the isopropyl probably like at least 90% I like using, you know, somewhere in there. I think this one's 80, but it doesn't really matter. I haven't noticed a difference. I really haven't. Okay, so I have my assistants here. So we're going to turn the camera the other direction so that
okay.
we can do the demonstration over here. So I'm going to move. Is there any questions before I start moving on? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, I'm going to move my board over here. Bring my tools of the trade.
Okay, I'm going to, there we
Okay.
go.
And so everything, can you see everything okay, Jolene?
Yep. I
Okay.
re-spotlighted it. Hopefully that worked.
So as the reason why I have this is actually just I call it a practice board. Underneath is actually a blank piece of large paper have rolled out and taped down. The taping down is essential because it keeps it from warping or buckling. I do this for a couple reasons, and one is I like to just have a steady to kind of play with, and I wanted to show you different techniques on this piece before I go into the big painting, and partly because of cost, it does cost money when you have big paintings. The one thing I enjoy is I also do what I call maquettes or thumbnail sketches. And this looks a little bit, I would say kind of confusing, like, what is this? But I do this for a reason. I'm going to flip this over so I can show you. What I do is I just kind of start my art with a intuitive, expressionistic mark making. So as I'm doing, I usually start with 6 and I'll come in and just kind of wiggle my brush or my pen around. And I do these different random, if you notice, every line and every squiggle is either a different shape or form. And I try to practice this all the time at home, and or even in my studio, I just sit there and I kind of play with mark making. And I feel, oh, that went through. And I feel that this is important for just a warm up. It also helps to decide how you want to compose your painting. So when I do something like this, I'll look at it and I look at differences. So when I'm creating, variety is the spice of life, right? So what I do is I'll look and say, this one's pretty open and it's interesting, but I don't know if it has enough going on. So I might come in and figure out where I call it target marks. So if I were to divide my painting into 3 or 2 sections, which makes 3, as you can see, I know that this area and this area, this area and this area are important parts of my composition. So I know that in this area, I need to make this a little more interesting. And I usually pick 1 or 2 areas. And so today I'm probably going to pick 1. It's probably going to be this area. And so I'm going to put either most of my information or unique mark making or bolder marks here. And then I'm going to hopefully let the other ones kind of compose or support that and make this feel special. So your eye goes here, but these are part of the whole painting, if that makes sense.
Rule of thirds.
I'm sorry, Jolene, what did you say?
The rule of thirds.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think it's kind of, for most artists, it's kind of an intuitive thing. However, I do like to teach that only because sometimes it just helps. No one really taught me that until later in life. And I thought, where have they been? Why didn't they teach me this? The other secret I found is that I have, and I don't know if you can see it on, I literally have a jar that says muddy water. And what muddy water is it's a little drop of each color I'll be using into my painting. And you might say, well, why do you do that? One is because on camera, and I'm going to show you, when you put something, and I'm going to be very expressionistic with this. And what that means, I'm moving, I'm expressing a mood. So I'm going to come in and shake. I'm just shaking. I'm just having fun. So by doing that, what I've done is I've created a little cast of color. It allows the camera to see it for you, but it also helps me to see where it is. And so it allows me to either take a pen, I could come in and even take a water soluble pen and start working in little shapes here. I can also, and this brush, by the way, I love this brush. These are just a Chinese script brush. And again, these are all on my site. We put a link on there so that you'll be able to go there and look at it. I even like using, they have a pipette that's already connected. And so I'll just come in and drop in some bold drops in here. Isn't that fun? And so by doing that, I'm getting already a variety of colors. So I have this light value, this intense value here, and then a kind of a soft patina that kind of blends the two together. And already have something interesting going on. And by doing that, it also tells me or gives me a key on where do I take this? What do I want to do with this? So my next step is I might want to connect this to this branch. Even though I'm not being literal with these paintings, I want them to be very expressive. I might want to come in and just curve and kind of bleed into that one. And then take maybe the brown, for example. And this gets where it starts to lead into the branch. And notice how I just did one drop. I'm not trying to submerge the whole piece, and I'm letting it flow. And these are those beautiful blooms it creates. So what's happening is it gets very light in the areas that I want, and then I can pull. So just by pulling my brush into this, it's allowing me to kind of have control. And I always have a joke that watercolor, you can't control watercolor, it controls you. But I feel like by doing this, I have a little control.
I always
So-
say watercolor likes to help you paint.
Exactly. So now I'm going to come in and maybe put a little bit right there. And then I start building upon this. So the part that I love is there's no fear, because every mark is going to end up coming together at the end. So for example, I'm going to come in and maybe make, you can see this kind of got messed up a little bit somehow because I had the paper down, but I love it because now I know I want to maybe connect this to here. And that becomes my new flower, for example. And it's, when I say a flower, it's just the feeling of a flower or nature inspired. I'm taking a fan brush, I'm just going to press it. I think that would be kind of fun. And then maybe I want to drop, I have green, the complementary is the reds family, and I do have that going on. And I feel like I have quite a bit of it. So I'm going to go a little bit more of this value, this little red, almost like I call it chili pepper red. You put that in there. And then you're going to find this kind of has a little life of its own. But again, Nicole thinks she can control it. So, so I'm going to come in and just kind of hit a couple of areas I want to continue or to extend down lower to create that form. And maybe I get even fun with it. Maybe I'm going to come in and start, connecting. And this is one thing I enjoy. I like to connect pieces to each other, even though this has really no relationship to this right now. But by just having these two colors blend into one another, now it becomes harmonious and it feels like they're related. If I go in here, this branch here, goes from the black tone, which I think is the 700. They have different numbers. They don't have names. I'm going to connect that one. So I'm going to put a pinch, just one little drop of this black. But then I want the green to connect. So now I'm going to take the green and connect those. So you have this wonderful blend of colors. And if you, again, try not to control it, you let the watercolor take over, it will become a beautiful blend when it dries. Then I can come in and even extend it out further if I want. So now I can come in and maybe I need to create some kind of a branch that connects to this one. It's almost like a beautiful art puzzle in a way. Do you see that?
Yep.
So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the value. So you can see this is a beautiful, strong value. This might be my main source or my I would say like the place I want the eye to go to first. Right now it's this one, which I love, but I think I want it more here. So what I'm going to end up doing is putting some brights and some contrasts next to this so it has more interest. So I'm going to start adding in. I'm going to come in here. I think I'm going to end up bringing a branch through here. I don't want to pull them off the page. I want to keep them in the work. So I'm going to go up like that. I'm going to take my little black gray color, so light gray. I'm tapping it in there, kind of squeezing it. These pipettes are really nice. I don't know if I'm wording that correct, but I call them pipettes. They are wonderful because they have almost like the extension of a brush. So you feel like you have a little bit of control. Now I'm adding some black in here. And already you can see the drama and the dramatic scene that's starting to create. Now, if I put the lightest value of yellow in this mix, you're going to see something else happen. And that's going to help bring some unique, beautiful, bright colors that are going to draw your eye over here. And again, I can draw with these. I can just create the most wonderful shapes and sizes.
Do you
I like-
mostly use the little eyedropper for instead of brushes?
Exactly. A lot of times I do. And in that case, I did just now. And I love, they're a little pricey. These are my Escoda brushes. They're a fox hair and natural hair. These are great for blending and for bigger pieces. So I'll show you one of these since I love this brush so much. And I'm going to take this and make this area curl back into my focal point. So I'm going to come in here, pull this in, flip down, and I caught that yellow, and that's what I call a beautiful surprise because I didn't know it was going to do that. I'm taking the orange again, because again, I want something that's bright and cheerful next to this one. And it almost has a feeling of, what do they call those helicopter leaves? I can't even think of the name of them right now, but it reminds me of that. So I'm going to keep it. So I don't, again, I'm not trying to make a realistic flower or leaf. I'm creating them as I go. It's an intuitive or a expression of how I see nature. It doesn't mean it's actually a real flower or real leaf, but it's a shape of a leaf that I know. And so I let the viewer fill in the rest. I let the viewer become more intelligent and get involved in the painting. And I think they enjoy that because they'll say, oh, that's a blah, blah, blah flower. And all of a sudden, oh, yeah, it is. I never thought about that.
It is
So-
now.
Yeah. Let me get this over here. And you can see I love curves. You can tell I love to do that kind of thing. And I'm laughing because now my this is it was supposed to be my practice board, but I'm loving it so much. So I'm going to just keep this one going if that's okay with you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would do the same thing, whether it was big or small. This one's about 30 inches by 24, just so that you guys are aware of that. This is another one. This is called a hard wolf brush. It's a Chinese brush I love. And I'm going to dip it pretty intense here. And I'm just going to splat. And you think, oh my gosh, what is she doing? But what this does is it just creates the most beautiful blooms. And I'm just going to put in some color here. And again, I know that I want to carry on this theme of the reds and yellows. So I'm going to go in here and I think I'm going to go with the yellow again. Actually, maybe this lighter green kind of yellow. Almost a chartreuse. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? And so at the end, when this all dries, I can go in and hand detail work. So for example, if I wanted this to have ginkgo leaves, if I wanted this to have the ginkgo leaf after it dries, I might take my sepia pen, which is a Prismacolor pen, and I have this on my link. I might put in some lines if I want. So it depends on how detailed you want to get. I have a tendency to let the viewer make it up in their head. I don't put a lot of detail, but you can. I'm going to come in and fill some of these spaces so it starts to feel like it's a connected piece. So again, I'm taking my Escoda brush and I might fill in, I think it'd be fun to maybe make this a heavier line since these are all open. So I'll come in and create variety. So I'm creating something that has a little bit more substance. I love this play where you have this on top and this underneath. I don't want to get rid of that, but when it's dry, I can easily make a value change by just doing an overlay. In fact, it might be dry enough. I'm going to try it. So you don't take away from it because these colors are so intense and they're so clear.
And they do reactivate like watercolor.
Yes, in fact, let me show you that. That's a great question. Okay, so I did this one earlier. Can you see that on screen? Let me make sure. Yes. So if I were to take this and I want to reactivate it, I would take some fresh water and a dry brush and get it wet, actually. Might need let me get, oh, and this is the greatest tip. I don't know if you know this. I feel like I've been painting for all my life, and someone just showed me this. I thought, where have you been all my life? It's a sponge, kitchen sponge, and it's wonderful. I don't have to waste rags or paper towels, and it absorbs just the right amount. I just love this. And you can just keep it by your side because it has this protective side. It doesn't ruin your art. And I can come in and scrub out an area. So let's say I want to scrub out this. I wiggle, wiggle, wiggle while it's clean and wet. I could take a paper towel, just blot it. I do notice the pigmented as opposed to dye-based does take paint off a little easier. This one you do have to work it a little bit more, but you can see how much lighter that now is. Can you see that? And so on camera it's hard to show, but I'll try and get a tighter line here. I'll get it even lighter. There. And I love that because once I do that, I might want to drop in something fun like the black and put in a couple. So this is wet, but it has like a nice glaze. It's not puddled, it's just wet. And I'm going to come in, I'll make it fuzzy. So I can put little dots and they'll spread almost like a feather. And that already is a lot more interesting. So I keep building up as I go. And I might even pull in something fun in here. So since I've already done dots, I'm going to try to do some line work. And again, variety, I try to make it interesting. And these are all lines, right? So they all kind of look the same. So maybe I'll wet one or two of these areas.
So instead of thinking of them as flowers or whatever, you're just thinking shapes.
I'm thinking shapes, and I think what happens because of the way, again, if you notice when I paint, the expression of the brush creates what I would call natural forms. So you just intuitively feel it's nature based. And that's why I called it colors of wonder. I didn't call it colors of flowers. It's colors of wonders because we're wondering, okay, are they flowers? Are they bugs? Sometimes a little grasshopper might get in there. So it really just depends on my mood. I have times like a little bird might show up. In fact, I'll even kind of put that in. So I'm going to create a shape that might look like a bird. But again, I'm not a real literal painter. I like it to feel a little bit more uniquely kind of a surprise where you have to fill in the form. It's the unexpected. So I might put just a hint of brown and some blue, or maybe a bluebird. So because I changed my color now, I added that blue. I want to get that in like 3 more places. So I'm going to pull this through just so it has some uniform. Do you see how it kind of feels like a bird?
Yeah.
And then what I'm going to do is even give it a little blue feather. But again, it's not literal. It can be a bird, it could be a flower, whatever you guys want it to be. It's there for you. And maybe I want to take some blue into the upper region. So I usually try to get it in 3 areas so your eye kind of goes around. And because orange and blue are very complementary, I'll probably put some over here. And this would be a great place because with the green blending with the blue, I will drop in some color. And I can choose to leave it just like that, or I can come in and blend it. And because again, I want it to be different from that one and this one, these 2 are similar. I might want to just put a light value in here and maybe even do the little paper towel or sponge trick and pull some of that off. So you have a light, dark, and a see-through. And then in this area, I dropped the muddy water here, but it's perfect because I want to make that a little bloom. So I'm going to come up in here, take my Prismacolor sepia toned pen, let it kind of touch, create almost a stem-like feel. And I'm going to put some more blue over there just because. And I'm just hitting at the base. So by the time it reaches up here, it's going to have a nice variation of light to dark. And again, I can go back after these dry and do it again. So I have my blue over in here. Now I'm going to work over in this area. And I like to work off the page. So a lot of times I'll come in and I might just kind of get a little bit loose, create this feeling of something further away. It could be a branch, for example, coming into play. But now your eye wants to roam around. And I think that, again, I call this a big jump. So I want to connect the blue so they're closer together somehow, so they don't have to jump from one to the other. So right in this area, I will want to also do some blue. And this is where I might take a splatter of blue. So I put water on my brush. I dipped my ink, I'm sorry, my watercolor onto the brush. I'm going to hit it to connect and create an atmospheric mood. And maybe even come back over in here and pull some back over. Since there's quite a big green here, I might even kind of bring some blue back in here and kind of pull that down. Maybe even in here. Yeah. There. And again, if you notice, like sometimes I'm going this way, sometimes going this way. So the movement of how I have my hand makes a big difference on the motion, or the what I call like the expressionistic way of painting. So
It
again,
harkens back to your original thumbnails.
yeah, exactly. So if I go back to in fact, it's funny that you said that. When you go back to my thumbnails, you start to really kind of almost, it's your handwriting tells a lot about you and what you enjoy. Obviously, I like movement and curves. And if you were to go back into some of these, the one I selected was this one. It's hard to see at this point. However, you really get that feeling of that movement all within those shapes. So you have this being a featured focal point. You have this one over here. This one gets a little bit softer when it's drying. And then your eye kind of connects back around. So this is where I sometimes have, if I'm working on a studio, I have several going at once. I would let this dry. And then I would stand back, look at it, put it upright, and then find ways to start either filling in an area. Sometimes I keep them wide open with the white background, but I'll find areas that are lacking some interest or that I feel needs to be more connected. And so
do you ever muddy up your colors? You use them always straight out of the.
Yeah, no, and that's where exactly. So that's where the muddy water comes in, because that helps. And it also will, once it's dry, I'll do overlays. So for example, on the green, to muddy it, I do the reverse and I would add a little bit of red. So the complementary color of green would be your red. So I would bring a little bit of an overlay. In fact, this might be dry enough. Let me see.
So like you said, your focal point was down in the lower right hand
Yeah, right
quadrant.
here. Yeah.
And you might make the green up on the left a little less.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. You have it exactly right. So what will happen is I'm going to show you, I'm going to take not quite, I'm going to water down my red. And sorry, I don't know if this is on camera. So I'm going to water down my red a little bit. And using my muddy water again, I will sometimes even put a pinch of the green back in it. In this case, I'm not. I'm using it fresh because I want to do an overlay and I want it to be offset. So I'm not purposely just going over that piece. I want it to feel like something's over it to muddy it. So I'm going to create a leaf that goes into this. So you can almost see it right here. And I'm going to come in. Oh, and see it reactivate that black, which is great. So again, that's creating this really fun value change. So you can see the transparency of this coming through. And then the spreading of the black relates to this. And that was not even intentional, which is fabulous. So now I might come in again to muddy this just a little bit. I can come in and be a little bit more careful about where I'm applying it. Ooh, pretty. Not intentional, but I love it. Isn't that fabulous? I just love this.
It changes it just exponentially. It just changed the focal.
Right. And that's why it's so important. And I always tell everyone, my students, I say, lay it out, get happy with your work, and then walk away, go get a drink, go get something to eat, let it dry, let it bake, let it bake. let it do its thing. And then again, I like to come in with even pen work, and it's usually best if it's dry. I'll come back in and even do maybe some fun little pen work. You know, you can do as much as you want. Personally, I'm not a fan of what
Nicole, just as a precaution, in case this is not recording both,
yeah.
can you hold that up to your original camera for
Oh, yeah,
that we could
yes.
see it?
Okay, okay.
Just
So
in
what
case.
I'm going to do, because this is pretty wet, and if I move
Well,
one,
well, it doesn't have to be right this instant. So
yeah,
just,
let me see. I have my little assistant here that will help
oh,
me.
oh, there you go.
There.
And hopefully they're both recording, but as I told you, I'm not
Yeah,
the,
yeah. I
yeah,
don't know if you can see.
yeah,
Does that help?
yep.
And so again, it's one of those things where my art students are darling, because a lot of times they will see things in it that I've never saw. And it makes my art, I feel like it elevates it to a more unique or a better experience for people. I like things that people can interpret what they want out of it. I know
I'm
that's not for everyone,
I'm
but I love.
fascinated by, we've had several abstract painters and
Yeah.
the difference in the thought process and like Betty Franks, I think is her name, did
Oh,
a,
yeah, yeah,
and
I love it.
she definitely is thinking floral. It reminds her of things, and the way she starts with the same mark making, kind of like you did.
Uh-huh,
She works in acrylic, so it's a little different. And
right,
in the
right.
watercolor, it's translating similarly, but I'm a watercolorist, so for me, I find this extremely exciting that it does not have to always be in acrylics, and you can
And you can, yeah,
utilize this looseness and these sort of blooms and stuff, even in a painting that is more representational.
yeah, exactly. And again, it's one of those things where I've had clients that will say, oh, I want it to be literally a rose, and I have no problem with doing it. If you were to let me express myself in my language, my art language, this is it. So this is how I see nature. And that's the beauty of art. Everyone sees it differently. And you just find that certain people are going to like your work, and
Exactly.
it's really special when you have that connection. I feel like, I don't know. I think that's my favorite thing, actually. When someone actually enjoys what I do, I feel honored. It's really honoring to me.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
it
agree.
makes it all worth everything you go through in art, whether it's good or bad, it just makes it all worthwhile. Yeah, for sure. Would you like me to continue on with this, or is
I
there?
would personally.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so now I want to get some bigger shapes, and I want to draw again the eye in. So I might want to come in and overlap. Again, I'm trying to keep the eye back in. So I'm going to take one of my larger brushes again. This is the hard wolf brush. And I'm going to come back in and maybe just pull a big shape. Because
Is
to
this your
me,
dirty water or clean?
this is my muddy water. It doesn't look like it's the muddy one, but it is the muddy water. And again, the muddy water is just the different colors all added in there to just get a little bit, so it's not so bright, it makes it, and you can see the work. So I can see what I just did here. And by doing that, it's allowing me, instead of just doing a green, I might mix a little bit of this orange in here, because I don't necessarily want that to be my main piece. So I'm going to come in and just push, let go. And notice how I'm using I'm not using my hand, I'm using my whole arm. My hand never moved. And then I'll come in and start adding, maybe, actually, this might be interesting. We'll try it. And again, I don't even know, sometimes I'll come in and make these fun little dots, the little ladybug. And look at how whimsical and interesting that could be, a pod. So maybe after this dries, I might draw some lines over it to create almost like a pea pod effect.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it draws your eye back in, and it pulls this pink back in, which is a nice way to draw your eye around. I might even put in one overlay. So I might come up in here, push up again, see my whole arm is not moving. I mean, my hand's not moving, my arm's moving. And now it's drawing you back down. So I love things that overlay each other and almost have a feeling of like a jungle, like here is a perfect place. I'm gonna put this and just meander these most amazing little string type. It reminds me of when I went to South Carolina. I was I think it was, I'm sorry, it was in New Orleans, and I can't remember the area exactly, but they had all these trees with this moss hanging down.
Right. I was just thinking that same thing, that kind of lichen.
Yes, lichen. And so I
Lichen.
love that feeling. And I might even come in and get some little pieces that extend beyond to again get some variety in here. And look at how beautiful this green kind of ran into that yellow, and I might even hit my brush and get some splatter effect in here. And again, notice how I'm flicking this direction because I want the eye going here. I didn't flick this way, I flicked this way to keep you back in. And again, that just comes with training and just practice. I feel like my hands are like the maestro. I'm constantly leading. I'm leading my team here, Jolene. So I'm going to come in and maybe fill in this leaf, since this is kind of the place I want to make exciting. I
Do
might,
you ever paint with music?
every time. And if you go on my Instagram page, I'm dancing, I'm making a complete fool of myself, and I
Oh,
love
I
it.
did see that one.
Yeah. And I absolutely, it's like my most favorite thing to do. It's so, art should be joyful to me, not for
These
everyone, but for me
paints
it
certainly
is.
are joyful, and I love how you fall in love with the color. Yeah, I'm not the only one that goes, "Ooh, pretty color."
Yeah. Yeah, I get almost silly about it because I just feel like, wow, how does it know? To me, nature is the best artist, right? So in a way, for me, paint is the second best artist because it knows. You just have to be the orchestrator of it, right? Okay, so now we have something kind of fun going on here, and I'm going to keep building out. So I need to put something that will draw the eye back in here. So I'm gonna maybe come in and do a couple fun leaves that I haven't done yet. Doesn't look very dark on camera. Let me see if I can't, oops. Look what I just did, and it's gonna be beautiful, you watch. I'm gonna make it good. Okay, so I'm gonna pull our eye back in here. And again, you don't have to do that. And sometimes I go, why did I do that? I think this will be kind of fun though. And I love the plants that have that red veining, so I might put a little red in here. I forget what they call those, but we're gonna go ahead and put those in there. And then I will actually let this dry. I'm not going to introduce anything else to it yet because I'm still trying to figure out, do I want that to be important? Not really. This I want important, but it's making your eye go here. So I'm going to keep it just like that. I'm not doing any more. And now I want to come in with some more. I want to pull this yellow around. So again, I'm going to come in and draw my eye back around. I think I have, oh, here we go. This is a great yellow. So you're gonna find when you use these, there's certain colors that become your signature colors, and these are mine. I just love these colors. I don't know if they're what I would call tropical colors, but they just are, they're just so happy. So again, I'm drawing my eye back around in here. And now I need to start like toning down some areas. So now I'm gonna come in and say, okay, I really still want this to stand up. So I'm going to wait. And this is where the line work might come in, and I might come in and highlight this shape. So I'm going to wait on that. I'm going to come back into here now. It literally is like a puzzle to me. It just feels like I'm playing a game. So here I'm pulling that branch back into here. I don't know if you can see it on
Well, I
camera.
like how you're balancing things, that going back
Yeah.
and forth and just finding the balance to create something that you really didn't have a pre-planned idea of what it was going to be.
No. And really, if you think about life, I mean, aren't we always balancing? I mean,
Yeah.
you're balancing everything, right? So why not
Right.
with art too? So here I'm gonna come in and just do something that's maybe a little bit more playful or childlike. So I put this little bump in here. Let me get that blue. And again, I'm using blue because it's a little bit cooler. I don't necessarily want that to be this show. So I'm gonna purposely, I spaced them out. So when this dries, it'll be very transparent. It won't be very bold, and it lets the viewer connect to this line. So if they
Gotcha.
see this and all of a sudden you go, oh, that must connect there. So that's why I do that. And then again, I'm gonna come over in this area. And I love this idea of splattering. So I'm holding my brush this direction because I want to aim it this way. I'm going to come in and do these wild little marks. I'm going to take something, this gray is beautiful. It's a 704. It's just this light purple gray. I'm going to come in because I love purple and yellow. It's probably hard to see on camera because it's a light color, but when it dries, it's like magic. It has these, I call them halo effects,
Oh,
where it almost has like a rainbow at the end. This will be a pink edge. This might have a yellow edge. It just,
so
it has.
so it separates the color.
Yeah, it separates. It's beautiful. I love it.
We got
So
about
I put
10 more minutes if you want to, if you wanted to show us anything else, or it may,
Yeah.
if you could, if you have one that you have some of your finishing marks on.
Yeah, in fact, let me do that right now. Let me grab maybe this one over here, and let me move this off to this. In fact, can we turn this computer? I'll do that. So this is kind of fun. And it doesn't necessarily have to be. So I'm gonna try and get it. Sorry for me to do this. Is
Yeah.
that light enough for you to see? So if you can
Yeah.
see these areas, how I've highlighted layers after layers, and you can see the transparencies.
Now, is
You
that the
can see-
paint again, or are these pins?
Most of it actually is all paint. And then once in a while I'll come in with that sepia, which I need to add to my Amazon list for you guys. It's a sepia micron pen. In fact, I think I did. I put the whole pack on there. And they also, I forgot, Ecoline also has these watercolors in pen form. So
Oh.
you can actually literally use the same color in a pen form, which is absolutely wonderful. I don't
And
have a
that
pen for
inky watercolor, the dye-based watercolor is from Amazon.
Yeah, yes.
Excellent. And I
I
noticed
will
the
make
splatter
sure-
mark on that up in the corner, which is that, I think maybe that's that same color you were talking about, or maybe
Yes.
that's the dirty color.
Yes,
It
it
looks a
is.
little iridescent.
Yes, and in fact, I could add, in fact, while we're finishing up here, I'm just going to take some of my mica gold I was showing you earlier,
Mm.
and I will highlight just a pinch of it on here so that you could see what this gold can do. So I might put a little bit, sorry about that, it's dripping. I might put a little hint of it in this yellow here. And especially when you put it in the black, it will, I don't know if you can see, it chases the black while it's wet, and it just creates this beautiful aged look. So I'll go in once in a while and just find areas, or I might even like that little dot, it's wet, I'm gonna put it right there. Oh, and my bird got some too.
Oh, cool.
That's fun. And then I could come in and even put it in and make little pods or dots.
You'll have to send us a close-up of this when you finish it.
Yeah, in fact, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. Okay, and then I'll come in and maybe pull some of these fun little marks back down. So they create almost like a little salmon or like a little seedling coming out.
Yep.
Isn't that fun? Yeah.
Honestly, I think all of your paintings are very fun. They make me very happy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here, and I hope that everyone enjoyed this, and just try one. I mean, honestly, you cannot mess up. These are so beautiful. The colors are so intense and clear.
And I
you
think the
can
way
make them
that
as
you
pretty as you
started
want.
us out slowly and added to it, it's not quite so frightening.
Yes, exactly. I call it, it's like I said, a puzzle. You start with one little piece of your puzzle, you connect the other piece, and it just becomes a beautiful work of art. It just, yeah, it all comes together.
Well, Nicole, I cannot thank you enough. This was so fun.
Oh, thank you, Jolene. I appreciate it. I can't wait to head your way.
Yeah, let me
Hey, I
let
get
me
to go
end
and
this
see
recording.
some sand on my toes.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you.
I'm gonna